Hello,
Hi, how are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful. We're good. We're
We're
well.
doing well. We were just kind of waiting a few minutes to let people get in the room so people don't miss anything.
Excellent.
All right. Well, I guess we can just get started and then I'll enter people as they.
All right, sounds good. So Miss Kendall and I just wanted to bring you guys a little tidbit of information that we like to share with parents, talking about essentially how to bring Montessori into your home, and how to make that kind of a seamless what's the word I'm looking for?
Transition?
Like transition. Thank you. We have all kinds of tips and tricks that we get to practice being Montessori teachers and being in the classroom. So it's kind of a good idea to share what we do so that we have that nice school to home relationship. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and just for you to kind of visualize different scenarios that have arisen being at home and interacting with your children. So the first question is, obviously there have been, but thinking about how many times it's been that just had something you had to get done, or you needed to send emails, and you just had your little human clamoring at you for all of your attention in the moment. And think about how you responded to that child. Was it I'll get to you soon, or just hold on a minute, or all the different types of reactions you could have possibly had. Another one that we like to ask parents is, do you feel like you always have to be involved in your child's play? And does that, revolve around you? Is your child seeking out those moments of silence, or moments where they can quietly look at books, or just having those moments with themselves outside of, mommy and daddy always being there to entertain them? And also there's that portion where sometimes parents feel guilty for wanting to have those alone moments, or trying to get things done. So we're here this afternoon pretty much just to provide you with some ideas of how you can start to bring Montessori into your home. So let's talk about, there's this idea called being rather than doing. A lot of times as a parent, you feel like your job is to do for your child. So what we're here to do is ask you to switch your brain a little bit and think about how can you be? How can you be a presence for your child, kind of that behind the scenes guiding hand, and give them the space to actually try to do some of those things on their own, rather than just swooping in there and doing it for them. It's not always easy. There are many, many, many factors that come into place, whether it's trying to get out of the door in the morning to go to school. You have somewhere you have to be on the weekends, and sometimes time is not always your friend. So hopefully with some of the tools we give you, you'll start to see ways that you can incorporate them in your home. So some of the things that we look for children to be able to do include daily life skills. We call it practical life at school, but it's essentially, the care of themselves, helping to be caring for your environment at home. Here it's the classroom, and being having the tools, what you would want to see in them as they grow and become adults. In the Montessori environment, we are considered observers. We spend a lot of time watching and waiting. We spend a lot of time practicing, just stepping back and seeing what's going to happen before we intervene. And what we find a lot is that the children figure it out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Or we start prompting them with, well, what do you think you need to get this done? Or how do you think we can solve that problem? So essentially, any question a child asks us, we kind of throw it back on them.
And I think that part of the reason why we do that is not only, we're taught in our training is that, obviously with having a lot of children in our classroom, we can't be everything for every single child. And we're also helping to foster the independence. And that's really what the value of being alone is about becoming independent. And so what we are really training them to do is to think about it themselves, to see what they are capable of doing first before reaching out for help. And so that's kind of how those little tidbits of things that where we're asking them, that's where they're learning, well, the power isn't with what the teacher said or what the parent said. The power is actually with me, because when I ask for something from my parent or from my teacher, they're going to ask me how I feel about it or what I think I should do first. And that's really powerful, especially for, a lot of you guys here have younger ones. You guys are moving out of that toddlerhood and into the primary age group. And so for them to understand that you are trusting them with a little bit of independence, that really does show a lot for them.
Absolutely. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. What I was just gonna say, the idea of being alone doesn't mean banishing your child into a corner and saying, hey, you have to go away from me, I need my alone time. No, what it really means is that your child is seeking out moments where they're like, hey, I'm comfortable here, I know what I can do, I am a contributing member of my family. So they know how to navigate your home without a lot of adult intervention. That's what we mean by that. It can sound harsh sometimes, and people are like, what do you mean? Like, be alone, go to your room. No, that's not what we mean in that sense. So a lot of parents always ask in our parent-teacher conferences, what can we do? You want to know what you can do at home with your children. And so one of the first things I like to express is the idea of role modeling. That's what we do in the classroom, even from our tone of voice. We want the children to use inside voices, talking voices. So we need to be doing the same. And also your voice, if it's always loud, always shouting, in those moments when you need your child to respond immediately, it's kind of going over their head. It's the same tone, same all the time. So you have to really differentiate your voice, your tone, your body language. Anything on that?
No.
Okay. So also some other ideas to consider is to practice slowing down. We have the luxury of time at school because our routines and our the boundaries we have set in place are allowing us to do that. But in the home, just giving your child the time to see something through, using your soft talking voice, remaining calm, using appropriate table manners and etiquette, all of those things that you think that you have to say, okay, now this is how we sit, this is how we do this. But children are learning things all the time just by watching you, just by seeing how you interact with your spouse, how you interact with your family and your friends. So making sure that you're saying you're sorry when you do something you don't mean to do, making sure that you are saying, oh, thank you, I appreciate your help for those things. And not overly, not in a disingenuous way, but just being mindful of demonstrating those skills. Even putting things back where they go. It's a good idea to get in the routine of making sure you have a place for your shoes, making sure you have and because your children will see that and they should be following those sort of things as well. Let's see. So let's talk about some of the steps to getting to, fostering this idea of the child's being in their own awareness and not solely depending on parents.
Sure. I just wanted to add one more thing for the when talking in parent-teacher conferences about the parent asking, so what can I do at home?
Oh yeah.
The number one thing that I always say that they can do at home is to involve them in family life, involve them in the house, involve them in the chores. And you'll see that part of the steps that we're talking about and going into independence is going to be involving them in the chores. Even a 2.5-year-old, they can match socks. They can separate out the laundry of who belongs, the clothes that belong to mommy, the clothes that belong to daddy, the clothes that belong to them, and the clothes that belong to if they have a sibling. Those are very easy things for them to be able to do. You can even get a basket for each person in the family, and that's something that they can do. As they get a little bigger, they can definitely sort the cutlery. Once you take out the knives of the dishwasher, you just hand them the little basket that comes out of the dishwasher and show them the, show them where your cutlery belongs. And then they can start sorting that out. That really helps them to concentrate on a task. And that's one of those things that we're first looking for in a step to independence. We really want to pay close attention to the moments that your child is exercising concentration, and try not to interrupt them, especially when you think that they may need your assistance before they actually say something. I think a classic example would be, working on a puzzle. If you see your child working on a puzzle and you see that they're, trying that piece, it's almost innate in us to kind of say, oh, it belongs right here. Or even to see a child looking through a book and say, oh, do you want me to read that to you? And not to say that it's that you never want to interact with your child. Absolutely you do. But you want to kind of take a moment to see what your child is doing and take that as a moment of their concentration and a moment that they are comfortable being alone, and celebrate that moment. It might only be 2 minutes and it might be 20 minutes. So it's really kind of nice to see and to wait and to watch and to allow your child to have that moment. And when they disengage from that moment, you could say, wow, you were working really hard on that. I noticed you were concentrating very well. That makes them feel great about the feeling that they had with that moment. When you see someone, when you see your child getting upset or starting to get frustrated, of course, then that can be a time when you could say, oh, if they start vocalizing and they're not asking for help, but they're just kind of whining, you can say, oh, I wonder if someone needs help. And then when they ask, then of course you can say, what do you need help with? I think that that's a really great thing, especially for as your child is becoming more verbal and able to say more words, since I know that we have some toddlers in here or, newly out of toddlerhood, then that can help them vocalize it. Or if you're still having to kind of scaffold the language with them, you could say, what do you need help with, this piece or that piece? And then have them answer. And so the idea is to try to allow them to be the ones to come to you for help and to allow them to have that moment of concentration. There's also where you really want to allow opportunities for your child to exercise patience. Instant gratification is really kind of a dangerous path to walk down, especially since you just can't always uphold it. I will say I am infamous in my class for, the children will come up to me while I'm washing dishes. Oh, I need some tracing paper, or I need this, or I need that. And I would say, oh, do you see my hands? They're wet. Can I get tracing paper right now? Or can you wait? Do you need to wait a moment? And they'll say, oh, I need to wait. And I'm like, that's right. The tracing paper would get wet with my hands. Once I finish washing dishes, I'll come to you and I'll see if you still need my help. I think that that's a great way to kind of phrase, you're making sure to be kind, you're making sure to have that gentle voice, but you're also letting them know the reason why you can't help right now, and point out concrete evidence as to why you can't help. That really does help them understand, and it helps them not to whine per se. They're not going to be as whiny if you can't help them because your hands are wet. That it's absolutely makes sense to them. It's not because, oh, she just doesn't want to help right now.
Right.
Or, I don't understand why this person, why this parent or this teacher's not helping me. It's, oh, well, that makes sense. They start, as soon as they kind of go into that 3-year-old phase, they really hit that black and white. Everything has a rule and everything needs to make sense.
Go out to Miss Kendall's room.
So
and grab Jean and Alexa's backpack and bring it up to the front, please.
then we also have, we want to try to not over talk, which is personally difficult for me.
Me too.
Try to incorporate more body gestures, give a simple smile, especially when you're across a room or something like that. I found that really does help me. I naturally have a loud voice. So for me, it was difficult in my training to get used to not just kind of hollering across the classroom, because my voice carries. It's very easy for that to happen. But to kind of look for eye contact. Maybe I use a lot of sign language in my classroom. So stop, or I'll even do like change shoes.
Wait.
Yeah. We all have our kind of our little
Please
tricks.
wait.
Yeah. And that's, also it's kind of that teacher eye. That's when it comes in, and the mom eye, the dad eye, that all kinds of comes into play, where you can just kind of give them a look of like, is that really what you should be doing? And then they kind of move on. They also children love praise and they love approval.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a slippery slope if every single time they accomplish something, there's praise, because then they are no longer doing it for themselves. They're going to start doing it for the praise. There's certain ways to be able to phrase things so that they understand that you saw and you acknowledge their work, without it saying, oh, good job, or, oh my gosh, you're the best, or you're so smart, all those kinds of things, which, trust me, they are so easy to say to children. It is absolutely,
Takes years.
it takes years to get that out of, your vocabulary. A great one, I think, is you did it, or, wow, you look so proud. I can see the smile on your face. How do you feel? And again, it's kind of putting it on them, seeing what they feel, and that they have that emotion, and that's the important thing. The important thing is that they have that emotion. It's not what you think about the activity. All of these things are what's going to help them to not always seek your approval for every single thing. It's so easy for when they are first turning 2 and they put their shoes on for the first time. Woohoo, let's have a parade for it. When they are starting to use the toilet, and everything is about using that toilet.
Yeah.
And then when that starts to taper off, they're like, well, wait a minute, hang on. Like, I'm used to potty parties every single day. Where's my praise? And so they're going to try to get it in other ways. And that's a great time to be able to use it, kind of in this little tweaked way, where you're letting them know that they are the important ones in how they feel and in the family as well. You also want to allow room for your child's interpretation. That's kind of how we give our lessons. And again, lessons you don't really have to be trained for. It's just the idea that if you want to teach your child how to wash a dish in the sink, then you show them how to wash a dish. And then you hand them the sponge, you hand them this, probably put a little bit of soap already on the sponge so that they don't waste all of your dish soap. And then you show them how to wash it. And, they might only do one swipe and then a little bit on the inside, and that's it. But instead of correcting them right in that moment, you just let them work. I will tell you from experience, working with bubbles, working with scrubbing, water, anything with water, bubbles, and scrubbing, you will be amazed how concentrated the wildest child will get. That's one of my go-tos. in the classroom. And that's a great way to allow them to calm themselves down. And all of a sudden they want nothing to do with you. They want to concentrate. They are, the youngest ones are like really excited about the bubbles and kind of the, just kind of the mechanics of it all. The older ones, they really want to scrub it and they'll want to show you afterwards on how clean they got it. But that's a great activity to do. I find that if you set up parallel play in a way where if you need to be in the kitchen, if you need to be making dinner or something like that, give them something to wash. Show them how to wash a dish. If you are able to have like a learning tower or a step stool or something like that, even if you just get a Rubbermaid container that, I guess, I don't know how many quarts because I'm really bad at that, but like something that can hold a gallon of water.
Yeah.
And you can put water in there and you can show them how to wash that. They will probably do pretty well. So they are still in the room that you are in, and they are doing a task that's somewhat related to what you are doing, but you guys are both doing different tasks and you guys are both concentrated on your own things. That is kind of the best way I find that they feel connected to you because you are right there, but they are allowed to experience their concentration and you're allowed to experience your concentration, and everyone is feeling at peace with not talking or not interacting. It's fine for them that you're right there. That connection is still there, but they are able to experience their concentration.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna share the screen with you guys so I can show you, we have some little fun information, and as a resource, I am using the Montessori Notebook.com, and it is a great little website for you to check out. It has a lot of free courses. It has a lot of free information. It's just kind of a little hub for Montessori that offers some things that you can read over in your own time if you're ever in search of some information. But that is the resource that I'm using today. So we're going to talk about, how we approach setting limits. And this is going to come into play when you are trying to set up those parallel activities, when you're doing one thing and your child is doing another, or this, approach will go across the board to, setting up routines, bedtime, getting ready for school in the morning, or just any situation. So we're just going to start at the top. And the first one is there clarity? Have you set a few house rules? In my classroom, we have 3 main rules. And I try to do it in, sets of 3, because that's pretty much the most that a child from 3 to 6 is expected to retain until they get really good with their executive functioning. So have a few things at your house that are always set in place that your child can always depend on to be the rule. And then you have to be consistent with those limits. It shouldn't be different because of convenience, and sometimes that's always hard to stick to, but that's kind of a good way to go about it. Just be consistent. And if in the moment you feel like, maybe you don't mind changing this rule, mull it over with your partner outside of the moment and, talk about it. And then later present it like, we decided to change this rule because. It's never a good idea to just go crazy and change something in a minute, because then that becomes unpredictable for the child, and they depend on patterns to determine their future, because time is not really an aspect that they understand at the moment. Number 2 says, is there love in your limit? When directing your children, always remember to get down on their level if possible, using a firm but loving voice. It doesn't have to be loud, and you can still mean business. We rarely ever have to raise our voice, unless it's a safety issue. And the children still very much understand that what Miss Kendall says, what Miss Tiffany says, is the way it's gonna be. So just remembering those sort of things, managing your own anger first. A lot of things happen because out of fear, honestly, we're afraid they're going to hurt themselves. We're afraid that, or we're disappointed that they've taken everything off the shelf and dumped it everywhere. And now there's a huge mess. And so just taking that moment to stop, take a deep breath, think about, what am I going to say first? How do I want this situation to come out? And what is the best way to go about this? We always, again, wait and watch. Take 5 minutes, count down in your mind, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go forth with the direction. So give respect and empathy if they're sad and frustrated. Be there to hold them. I'm here for you when you're ready. I see that you're sad. I see that you're disappointed. How can we help you do this? So, and when they're losing control, you can still be there sitting beside them. I'm here when you're ready. I'm here to help you stay safe, those sorts of things. Number 3, is there a reason behind the limit? Even if you're tired and done repeating yourself, saying because I said so really doesn't afford the child the opportunity to understand what the direction is you're asking them to do and why. A lot of people are raised differently, and there's different schools of thoughts on how you discipline your children, but just remembering that they are humans. They have a developing brain. So think about yourself at your job, and if someone tells you to do something and the reasoning behind it is just because I said so, how would that make you feel? Some things as parents, there's just that, and that's the bottom line. But remembering, explaining within reason.
And it can be real simple, like, you need to use your walking feet because you could get hurt. And then there doesn't need to be much more than that. We don't need to over explain. It's keeping it short and simple is kind of the best way. Or again, like the example with the washing washing dishes and my hands are wet. I can't help you right now. My hands are wet. I need to finish this task.
Yeah. Very simple. Is it age limit? Is the limit age and ability appropriate? So does it match up with your child and their age that you've given them? Limits can be revised as your children grow. So as they get older, we allow children to use things like scissors, for example, showing them how to use it and then giving them the opportunity to use it. The limit is if they use it incorrectly, then we redirect them or it has to be taken away. So it's all in your child's, in their hands at that point. They decide if they get to continue using it or if it gets taken away. And that is how you would go about vocalizing it. All right. Let's see. Is it possible to work with your child to set that limit? So for example, says, look with your child at ways to meet your needs, to have rest, and your child's needs to have fun. So bedtime is a big one. Deciding on bedtimes and things like that. We know as parents that children, when they're younger, they need more sleep. As they get older, the amount of sleep sometimes is not the same. So, you decide that, but you can, a lot of times children request to stay up longer, for example. And that's something you as the parent would judge. If you notice that you let the child stay up too long one night and the next day they didn't want to get up to school, that is a conversation you could say, we noticed that you're still tired in the morning, so I guess we should go to bed at our regular time from now on. Something like that. Do you might have an example for that one or no? We're good.
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. So is safety involved? Physically and gently remove the child when danger is, if from danger if necessary. So those are those moments when you really have to intervene. There's no other choice. Just remembering to be gentle in those moments. Let's see. And that's it for that infographic there. We will send a snapshot of all of this stuff if you ever want to refer back to it. Thank you, Ms. Kendall.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna briefly kind of talk about what you can do at home to kind of really help out. And then we'll open it up to questions because I
Yep.
just want to make sure that we have enough time for questions because, that's kind of why we're here too. So you just obviously want to start thinking about how you can set up your home for your child to be successful at being independent. I find that it's probably easiest to have small little areas within each of the main areas in your home that's kind of dedicated to your child. We kind of all, if you have the space for a playroom is great. However, a child is going to be less likely to want to play alone in the playroom while you are in the kitchen. They're still going to wander and want to be in the kitchen. So I definitely suggest that if you do have a playroom area, there is a ways that we have to be able to kind of set up for that. But also there's the kitchen and there's the living room, and even like the bathroom area to kind of help with a little bit of independence there. In the living room, we recommend having like a basket of books, and even a couple of open-ended toys like the Legos or building blocks, that kind of things, maybe even dolls. And it can be, they have so many different ways that you can package things attractively so that it looks like it still goes with your adult decor, but that, that child knows where that can be, that they can interact with these toys or interact with these books while you are in the living room with them. Another area is in the kitchen. The kitchen is great for either having a lower cabinet available for them to have their own, if they have their own dishes, keeping them down low so that then they can be the ones to put away their dishes. Another idea is if you have like a play kitchen or even just play food, something like that, that they would want to interact with that's kind of kitchen related, that can be in the kitchen. Even young children just like playing with different measuring spoons, measuring cups, just kind of hanging out with those things. And those are kind of things that they could possibly do in the kitchen. And then if you wanted to have, depending on how your house is set up, maybe in like the dining room or near the kitchen island, something like that, having like a couple of different crafts. So coloring books, crayons, stickers, whatever it may be, that can be something that they can work on at a flat surface. And, so that maybe if you're having to set up your computer and answer a couple of emails, you can say, okay, I need to answer a couple of emails on my computer. So why don't you go ahead and get, something that is going to be interesting to you, and you can come sit next to me and you can work. Then that way they can, whether it be a puzzle or coloring, whatever they're kind of interested in, that's something that they could interact with on their own, but then be next to you. Again, that parallel play. Another thing is, especially in the playroom, we suggest storing and rotating toys. One of my classic examples is in my classroom, I have a lot of children, or not a lot, but I have children who can use the 100 board, which is basically little squares that have the numbers 1 through 100, and they are organizing it on a board, like on a board with a grid. So they have to find number 24 and they had to figure out where it goes. They have to find 48 and figure out where it goes because they aren't really in order. I have children who know how to do it. They know that there's a grid system. They know exactly where it can be. But when they take out all of the tiles at the same time, they have no idea where to start. And that's exactly what a lot of times the children are like when they're in the playroom. You kind of have every single toy that they ever have had, in like the 3 or 4 years that they've been alive, they're kind of stored away, they're in bins, whatever it may be, and they don't even know where to start. Whereas with the example of with the 100 board, when I tell them take 10 out at a time and then put those 10, put those 10 where they belong and then get 10 more out. 9 times out of 10, they don't even need me. They know exactly how to do it. And the same concept can be brought to the playroom. Again, I'm going to keep going to those open-ended toys, Legos, building blocks, dolls, play food, all of those things where they can use them in multiple different ways. They can have a budding imagination, or they can use it very concretely. They're all used to interacting with those things in a lot of different ways. That's why they're open-ended. And so they allow for a lot of creativity, and they don't require adults. Obviously you get a lot of, I don't know how to say it other than gimmicky, but the very specific toys. So, I know like Blippi is really exciting right now, or Paw Patrol, all of those kinds of things where they kind of can interact with them in one way, that when they see the show, they're going to interact with them the way that they've seen the TV show. So it's a little harder for them to see it outside of that. And so it's not as open-ended. Not saying you can't have it in your playroom, you absolutely can, but take an inventory of how much is open-ended versus how much is very one way to play with it. And kind of have maybe 10 to 15 toys out at a time, store the other ones away. If you don't have storage space to kind of really get them out of the room, have some that are available on a shelf so that they are immediately visible versus other things in bins where they would actually have to grab things out. That really does help, because then visually you're cutting down on the clutter of all the different choices that they can make. I want to open up for questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have any questions, feel free to, unmute yourself. I'm sure we'll all be nice and taking turns and stuff like that. Anybody? Everybody? No questions?
None? Okay.
I guess let's see. Do you want to maybe show, we have a little video of kind of how to set up an environment. And it's only like a quick little 3-minute video, so we can definitely show that.
Yes. Here we go. Sorry. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. I'm going to start that.
Hi, I'm Simone Davis. I'm a Montessori teacher and mother, and I know how difficult it can be to set up our spaces at home so they're clutter-free and so they're also inspiring for our kids. So today I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step guide to set up your spaces so that they're engaging for your babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. Come, we'll have a look around. So step 1, the child-sized furniture. Shop bought furniture is too big for the kids. This chair, for example, is great. It's 22 centimeters high. This table is only 37 centimeters high. And these shelves are 35 centimeters high. These actually are really simple shelves. They're just made from MDF, and I painted them, so it doesn't have to be expensive either. I'll give this my dears in the kitchen, come and see. So in the kitchen, you have a small step where the child can reach up to the sink or the work surfaces. And in your cupboards down low, you can set up an area like this where the children can access the bowls, the cutlery, and glass to help themselves at snack time. You can also make a little place for them too. Step 2, I want you to clear everything away. Less is going to definitely be more. So get rid of all those baby toys, get rid of the big pile of puzzles that your child's not going to manage by themselves. And I want you to clear out that big craft drawer that's just full of mess. Start from scratch and only add back in a few activities, maybe 6, and they have to be good. Step 3, make things easy for your child to be able to manage themselves. You can use baskets like this, which they can carry with 2 hands. Build trays. Or also make sure that you have cleaning equipment at hand so that when there's spills, they can also help themselves. You won't be able to say, oh no, there's a spill. You'll be able to say, oh, let's go find a mop or let's get a cloth, and they can wipe it up themselves. So step 4, we're going to see things from the child's perspective. So you need to get down on the ground and see what the room looks like from their eyes. I can see now that maybe there's a cord over there that I can move. Maybe there's clutter that we don't see from the adult's height. See everything from their size. Also, think about the plants and the artwork in your space. Are your artwork only for the adults, or can you also put some down low? And maybe a nice plant? Put it on the shelf so the kids can look after it as well. Step 5, store and rotate. I want you to store everything that you're not using and rotate in the toys when your child needs some new activities. How do you know? I used to change the toys maybe once a week when the kids were toddlers and preschoolers, but those activities that they're still working with, you can keep them out. Keep aside a budget for not materials, but actually for great containers and some cupboard space. I hope this information has been useful. If you'd like more practical tips about the Montessori approach in your home, come to themontessorinotebook.com.
All right, so that was a quick little video that, there we go, are we back? There we go. So that was a quick little video just to kind of demonstrate how we kind of look at things when it comes to setting up a room for your children, things down on their level, and some of the things that Ms. Kendall spoke about, storing and swapping out, and all those sorts of things. Lastly, are there any questions at all that have arisen since a few minutes ago? If not, we are, oh yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks. This is really great. One of the questions I had, and I think I already may know some of the answer, is, with Jackson, sometimes he will be really engaged, but then he'll also just throw things, like throw, and it's all over the house. Any thoughts on that type of behavior and how to encourage, I guess, being alone or engaging him?
I always say when I see something go flying across the room, because it happens at school too, I noticed you threw that across the room. Are you telling me that you're done with it? And wait for an answer. If they're not finished with it, then you offer them, you may use it, but we're going to keep it right here with us. If we see it go across the room, then we're not being safe. So it's going to go away.
I think another thing too might be because he's young and sometimes they have that urge, maybe possibly giving an activity where throwing is somewhat acceptable.
Is the activity.
Yeah. It is the activity. So whether it be like very, very soft balls and maybe only put like 2 or 3 of them, and, or even like a little, they have like little like bowling kits kind of thing where they can kind of have little pins and then they can roll the ball. Because again, if he's doing that in a time where you guys are wanting to kind of have a little bit of alone time or wanting to let him interact with something by himself, you do want to take into consideration if he's throwing everything, then he has that need to throw. And if he has that need to throw, then let's make an activity for him where throwing is okay. And then that way, then you can redirect him when he starts throwing the blocks. You can say, oh, it looks like you want to throw. There's the block, there's the balls are here that you can throw. And then that way, they're soft and they aren't going to, you can, again, set those limits as to where he can throw them. He can't throw them in the kitchen while you're making, dinner because, it could get in the food, but he can throw it against the back of the couch or, whatever it may be. Like there's a specific space and there's a specific activity for him to be able to do that. And so you're able to give him that, what he needs, allow him to successfully still do that by himself while still setting limits.
You can get like a big basket or a big bowl or something and it could be set up close by.
Right.
So yeah.
He can even be, chucking ice cubes into a mixing bowl or something like that. If that's what he's, again, Montessori is just a philosophy. And so a lot of it is kind of taking where the child is, what the needs of the child are, and making that productive. And so I think that kind of helps. And when you take and you look at it, then you can kind of see what the need is and be able to help out.
Think about how you can replace it. I guess that's a quick and easy way you can't do it like this. So what can I replace it with that is going to be okay with me?
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a question, or do you have another question, Judy?
Gosh, I can think of all these scenarios, but I think,
I mean, that's
I'm
fine, 'cause
okay
I
for
mean,
now.
Scenarios are
Yeah.
good too.
I have found that if only one person speaks, they're all, everyone else has the same scenarios going on at home.
Well, you know, Jackson is really obsessed with the basement because we have a lot of trucks down there, toy trucks, and he has a little wedge thing and he just wants to put them up on the couch and watch them go down the ramp.
Mhm.
And he can do that all night by himself.
Yeah.
So the question is, should I just kind of allow him to do that, but should we be encouraging lots of other activities, or the one that he's most interested in?
I mean, you're at home. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those things where if that's what he's interested in, that's what, we kind of think of it as a sensitive period, or like, that's kind of what the spotlight is going on right now. And
Mhm.
you almost think of them as little scientists, where
Mhm.
you may see him just doing that. But if you think of it in a more scientific way, he may be exploring gravity. He's not going to tell you he's exploring gravity. But what's
Mhm.
really interesting to him is, if I put it here, no matter what, it's going to go fast and it's going to go flying and it's going to crash. And he's getting to see over and over again, it keeps doing that. It keeps doing that. I keep testing it and it keeps doing that. And that's really exciting. So as long as he's not, he's not destroying it, he's doing, a methodical thing over and over again, he's finding pleasure out of it. I mean, that's kind of really what we're talking about that we want, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
being able to entertain himself in a productive way where he is finding joy out of it, and he's not even seeking you out for validation of that joy.
Yeah.
So it sounds
Yeah.
like he does pretty well in
Mhm.
being able to be alone. So that's good.
And there's a thing that
Yeah.
we use in the Montessori classroom called mastery.
I gotta go.
Yeah, sure.
Bye-bye.
We want the children to do repetitious things because they are developing those skills and those things where they can depend on after some
Mhm.
time. So that's absolutely what we look for. It's the basis of everything, before we can teach them math and language, before we can go into those abstract lessons, they have to have that ability to concentrate and to attend to something for an amount of time. So we use things like table washing or like rolling the trucks down the ramps. It seems minimal, but they are doing purposeful work.
Okay. And one last question, don't think I'm bad. He also likes TV, and sometimes they're just desperate for a little bit of time. So I'm like, okay, here, watch the movie Cars. There's 2 hours of him watching Cars, and he's concentrating and he'll watch it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that's not great, but I mean, what are the thoughts there?
There's all kinds of schools of thoughts on that. I grew up in a household, I don't know if you guys remember the video store Errol's that was around before Blockbusters and all that stuff. But my dad worked there and we had like all of the Disney movies. I mean, watching TV was what I did as a kid. And we played outside and we played games. So, I think you have to find that balance in your life. There is, actual research that shows that, children a certain age should only have this amount of time and that amount of time. But really, I mean, you have to be realistic about, your expectations in your home. If he's doing that like every day, then I would try to reconsider. But if it's, once a week or, on the weekends, then I don't think there's a problem there,
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't beat yourself up about it.
Yes. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need to make dinner. Okay, do this. But I like the other ideas of setting up stations in the home and having some play areas, even in the kitchen.
Yeah,
and I think he's at a good age for it now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Even the dollar store sells a little spray bottle. It's perfect for their hand size. They can spray the table and wipe it down. Like, thinking of all of the chores that you would do, how can Jackson do it? Or how can Vihan do it? Or how, so absolutely.
Okay.
So, Ms. Tiffany, thank you very much for presenting. This is very helpful. By the way, this is Vihan's mom. My question for you is, Vihan comes home and we have this routine of he likes to, we make him use the bathroom and then he washes his hands, and it's done independently. However, the washing the hands part is more challenging because he has the concept, but he's not really doing it. It's more, I'm focused on, playing around with the soap or just kind of squishing it. And, if I try to, or my husband tries to model hand over hand, he gets very upset. And, again, like he's not really washing his hands. He's kind of just hanging around there and playing with the water, and it's not getting done. So how do we go about that to, like, at least for the first hand wash, to really kind of get him to do it?
Absolutely. So we become like a little bit dramatic about things like that are like absolutely important for the kids to learn, but they don't really want to be interested. So you have to kind of draw them in. So we use, make bubbles. First, you get your hands wet, and kind of be silly, not like overly obnoxious, but you're just trying to draw their attention in. So sometimes I even use my whisper voice rather than my regular voice, because they're like, huh, what'd you say? Oh, what are you saying? Something? So, using we're going to wash our hands. We can't do anything else until our hands are super clean. So here we go. You ready? I'm going to do mine over here. You're going to do yours right here. And we say we have to sing the ABC song or the happy birthday song 2 times.
And that was another thing I was going to say, because it's like the soap's on and within 2 seconds it's off. And we need some time with this. So
at school, what I'm doing with the children, because obviously we have the same problems at school. I teach them to turn the water off after they get the soap. You wet your hands, you get the soap, turn the water off.
Okay.
And then we have to make bubbles. If you don't see bubbles, then you're not all done. And we can't start singing until we see bubbles. Get those bubbles, so it takes the onus off of you saying, saying what the limit is. They know what the limit is because they can't see any bubbles.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I was like, all right, well, we're come up with ways, and it's like it, and then we have meltdowns after because we didn't let him do it however he wanted to do it. So and my second question kind of goes back off what Judy said was, sometimes even though he's at school all day, when he comes home, obviously he's been through a full day of school, they're tired, they're cranky, they also want to decompress. We really try to limit screen time. And before, this was a challenge for us, and now we've somehow come off of it. It's like he would not eat his food without some kind of form of entertainment. And we've just seen this transition of now it's just, he eats his dinner with no issue, which is great because, I think he understands now, you can't have, that's family time. You can't have screens for that. But my question is, a few times a week or maybe even every day, like after everything is done, we give him about maybe 15, 20 minutes of, we try to encourage him to watch more educational stuff, but, sometimes things on Netflix are a little mindless. So he's like fixated on the same things, and trying to get him to, watch other things is just, it's impossible. So what would you recommend for that?
It can be tricky because it's like you have to start from the beginning of TV, of introduction to TV, like kind of think about what your limits are going to be. A lot of people don't really understand this, and not because they don't have the ability to, but only because I'm in childcare do I understand. Developmentally, children cannot really understand fantasy until about the age of 6, 7, so introducing them to a lot of superheroes, a lot of things that aren't based in reality, it becomes challenging for them to kind of interpret. So they will come to school and you'll see them, instead of, hi, it's kind of like, shoom, I want to be Spider-Man. Or like, you know, they
Yeah.
go to those things immediately. So trying to incorporate more animal life things, or you know,
Okay.
Mr. Rogers was a good one. Or
Right.
like you said, the learning things, but it's so hard. They do become fixated on certain things. So when I'm trying to get children to get out of their, you know, what they're fixated on, first this, then that. First, we're going to try this show, and then we'll try your show, you know, and it could be like
Right.
a 10-minute of this, and then we'll do that. And then
Right.
slowly but surely you'll have to, you know, just phase it out. Sorry, it's going away.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's fine to do the small increments of time. I definitely would
Mhm.
try to eliminate completely, like you said, at meal times.
Yeah. And
Thank you, thank
we're
you.
very, yeah, we're very grateful that he kind of, I mean, he just made that transition and we just have never gone back, and it's great. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. It's definitely kind of hard to you know, judge across the board. You really do have to take it scenario by scenario, but
Yeah.
mealtime is a big time. You know, there's so many jobs that he could do. Like at school, he sets
Right.
up a place to eat and all those sort of things. So I think you're
Mhm.
heading down the right path. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, okay, we're always available. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up, and I will share all the information. There was 2 other things. There was a list of jobs to do at home and kind of the areas you can do it, and also some say this instead of that sort of scenarios. So I will share all this with everyone, and I hope you found this a little bit helpful, and thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. But bye-bye for now. See ya.